And welcome in here to Live Now from Fox as you're taking a live look there out of New York here this morning, where we continue to follow the latest with Sean Diddy Combs after he was sentenced yesterday to 4 years and 2 months in prison for transporting people across state lines for sexual encounters. While prosecutors sought a sentence of more than 11 years, his lawyers wanted him freed immediately and said the time behind bars has led to his remorse and sobriety. Combs was convicted in July of flying his girlfriends and male sex workers around the country to engage in drug-fueled sexual encounters in multiple places and over many years. However, he was acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering charges that could have put him behind bars for life. To break this all down for us here is a friend of the show, Jeremy Rosenthal. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Live Now. We appreciate it.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Well, I want to recap this for the viewers here, but let's start with this. When we were initially covering this yesterday, we had heard that this could have gone on past yesterday, could have potentially even gone into Monday, but we did see the sentencing wrap up there yesterday. So what led to this being decided so quickly here, and was it surprising to you that this wrapped up?
Actually, it's not surprising at all. I want to say that I'm kind of surprised in some ways that it took as long as it did. Federal judges do sentencing very routinely, and a federal judge has really almost exclusive ability to decide somebody's punishment. So these hearings are very routine, and when somebody either has a trial or if they even plead guilty, most of the case is handled at this phase. Now, obviously, there's a big circus here. There's a lot of witnesses here. So there was a lot more pomp and circumstance. But what happens is when you have somebody who is like Combs and you have this instance, it's really hard to sort of keep this circus going for more than 1, more than 2, more than 3 days. His trial certainly did, but that's much different because you've got jurors, you've got sort of all of the other witnesses that you're balancing and all of the complications for a trial. So a full day is about par for the course. And I don't know that this would have really stretched much into next week. Again, I think Diddy had a great day of court. Now, it doesn't feel like a win. He's still in prison. A year from now, it's still going to feel like a loss, and a year after that. But look, at the beginning of this trial, when he is facing all the sex trafficking, all of the charges, and the full weight of the government, search warrants, raids on multiple houses at the same time, all of these things that we hear about, you're thinking a 10, 20, 30-year sentence. And to get out of it with just about 4 years, 50 months, I think is a pretty good job by his legal team.
And Jeremy, as he just said there, prosecutors, they were looking for a sentence of more than 11 years. He got just about over 4 years. So was this sentence surprising to you all? And what factors might have influenced the judge's decision to impose a lesser sentence?
Federal sentencing goes by what are called the federal sentencing guidelines, and the federal sentencing guidelines are basically think of a matrix or a grid. There is literally an x-axis and a y-axis, and on one axis is your criminal history, and then on the other axis is the severity of the charge. And basically, you get assigned or assessed points based on the statute, based on the punishment level. Also, you get points for your criminal history if you've been in trouble before this event, and you get other points in the mix, which that's kind of where a lot of the nasty fighting is are you an organizer? Are there multiple victims? Did you do this? Did you do that? Were there weapons involved? These things can sort of enhance, and you can actually get points taken down if you cooperate with the government, if you testify against a co-defendant. So Diddy's charge, when the calculation was done, the federal sentencing guidelines put him between 5 and 7 years. So even though the government's arguing for 11, and even though his lawyers are arguing for time served, I think that most people, most lawyers, most experts, when we looked at this, kind of felt like it was going to land between 5 and 7, maybe 4 and 8, if the judge sort of departs just a little bit on either side. So from that standpoint, it's not particularly surprising. And on appeal, what Diddy's going to argue is he's going to say those guidelines were wrong. He's going to say those guidelines really should have had me at 2 or 3 years. That's standard stuff.
Right. And I wanted to quickly ask you, though, he's already served a year in jail. So how does that factor into his sentence and the time he's going to have to spend in jail?
He's going to get time credit for everything that he has already served. So if he gets a 50-month sentence, I believe he's already had 14. I went to Texas Tech, so I'm good at numbers. I want to say that's 36 months left that he has to do. But then what's important also is that he's going to get what's called post-trial or post-sentence supervision. So what's going to happen is that he's actually going to be on release, and he's actually going to be sort of on parole for about 5 years after he is released. And if he violates, he could still go back to prison. So even though he gets out, he still has to check in with functionally a parole officer or federal probation, which is kind of the equivalent of that. And so he's not going to be completely done, but he does have the opportunity to make good on everything that he told the judge yesterday about how he's redeemed, how he's sober, how this has been a big turning point in his life. He's going to have a chance to put his money where his mouth is.
And you mentioned appeal, and I want to talk about what now that is going to look like. What are the strategies that his lawyers are going to try to implement here? What is the thought process that goes into that?
You're going to appeal multiple things. You're going to appeal the original trial, even though you were very successful, even though you were acquitted on certain charges. You're still going to appeal the trial. You're still going to appeal things that you felt like the judge did incorrectly in the guilt innocence phase. And then on punishment, you're also going to say, look, the federal sentencing guidelines should have had me lower. Also, another really kind of controversial thing. In the sentencing, the judge kind of indicated that he thought that Diddy sort of was coercive, was manipulative. He kind of hinted or leaned into the fact that, look, even though the jury acquitted you of this human trafficking, I'm not necessarily convinced that you're innocent of that. That's very controversial because if you are under the law, if they prove you guilty and you are found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, at that point, you can consider that type of aggravating information. And because the jury acquitted him of it, is that proper for the judge to consider? Under federal law, it is, but it's really kind of a borderline thing. And I'm sure the federal judge was very, very careful in his words in sentencing Diddy, because you don't necessarily want to get reversed. So the fact that he is acquitted of the trafficking wasn't necessarily disregarded by the judge, and the judge still kind of held that against him. That's almost certainly going to be a ground for Diddy to appeal.
And I think we have to mention here, this was a really big piece of all of this. The jury repeatedly shown video clips of Combs dragging and beating Cassie in a Los Angeles hotel hallway after one of those multi-day sexual marathons, if we can call it that, which were referred to as freak-offs. Cassie Ventura and other key witnesses expressing concerns for their safety now. But can you elaborate on the impact of Cassie's testimony as well as some of the others, and really how much of an impact that did have on this case?
Certainly it had a big one because I think the judge definitely sort of expressed that. And when you're Diddy and your Diddy's team, especially in the punishment phase and in the sentencing, they had a video, 12 minutes, talked about philanthropy, talked about all of the influence that Diddy's had, what he's tried to do well. Also, live testimony from his family. I believe just as much as you can sort of pour on. Diddy doing what's called an allocution. That's where you're allowed to talk to the judge directly before your sentence, sobbing. So even doing all of those things and making all of those points and still getting kind of a stiff prison sentence, you know that Cassie Ventura, you know that a lot of the things that the judge saw were certainly taken into consideration. And you would also think that those had a long way of going into the federal sentencing guidelines, because those are produced by the federal probation officers. That's who calculates the guidelines. And then the lawyers have a chance to sort of argue that in front of the judge, and the judge ultimately figures that out. But all of these things, the fact that these are very human charges, that video, I think is obviously very damning. And I think the judge thought so as well. Again, kind of a win for Diddy in the big scheme of things from a 40,000-foot view. But from his point of view, certainly doesn't feel like that today or next month or in a year. But ultimately, I think that the testimony did have a long way to go in shaping kind of the big picture of this trial.
Before I let you go, Jeremy, just to clarify for our viewers here, because we were talking about an appeal, what does this timeline look like going forward? What can we expect going forward?
A federal appeal takes a while, and it's going to take it could take upwards of 9 months. It could take close to a year. It could take even longer before we hear back. So P. Diddy's not going anywhere. He's going to be serving out his prison sentence. He's got 36 months to go, and then he's got that release. The appellate process is going to be it's going to take a while. And I don't know that he's got really any wonderful grounds for appeal. One of the big grounds for appeal is typically going to be punishment, and you're almost always fighting over the federal sentencing guidelines and whether or not those were calculated correctly. He got not only were the calculations kind of low. This was a 20-year sentence potentially, and for the guidelines to put in between 5 and 7 years, I think are low. And then the judge went even below that. So I don't know that he's going to have really wonderful grounds on appeal. He's going to be almost certainly fighting over rulings and things that the judge sort of talked about during the trial, during the case in chief. So that's just going to take a couple of years or at least a year to kind of iron out. So I think that this story is probably going to die down for a minute, but in 36 months, Diddy's going to be a free man, and he's going to be able to go out there and do whatever he feels is right. Maybe more music. Maybe he's going to lean into the arts. Maybe he's going to make good on some of these promises. I think we all hope at a minimum that happens.
All right, Jeremy Rosenthal, appreciate you coming on the show again. You've been joining us the past several days, so we do appreciate it.
Thank you, Christy.